My boy Seidou, at the end of this chapter of Tokyo Ghoul, chapter 20 to be exact. The tragedy at the end of this chapter is sad. It is so sad seeing how his character is like it is. Just seeing the personality of how he acted at the end of this chapter is tragic. It is really, really tragic. If you don't know who Seidou is, I want to point him out. He's the character that supposedly died at the end of the final arc of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. He had his arm completely gone. He was like almost cut completely in half, kind of, and his body was supposedly never found. We didn't know exactly what happened to him. So, to see how Seidou is in this situation where he looks like he does, and it looks like his personality has done a 180, what is Omon like? How's Omon? We got to think about this right now. Like, if Seidou is this bad, okay, and his personality is this damaged, how is Omon? Think about that for a second. Omon, we know for a fact he was taken by Ogiri Tree. We know for a fact he was. And we know at the end of Part 1, Eto and all of them stated, we just need to make another Kaneki. Clearly, they made another one. They made Seidou into another Kaneki. He was like a perfect candidate for another Kaneki. He actually was. And to see how he is at the end of this chapter, it's sad. Because if you remember that personality of how he was with Almond and everybody else in CCG, and when you look at him and how he is at the end of this chapter, like how he acts, it's sad. Because, like, there's no way he could possibly come back from the way he is right now. Like, he says he's starving. It looks like he's chosen the ghoul path. He's starting to eat people. And it looks like he's in madness right now. Like, he's straight up in madness. And he looks like Kaneki in some aspects that we saw in Part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. The way he carries himself. The way he had his finger in his mouth and all that. Just the way he looks so twisted and crazy. It reminds me of how Kaneki was. Of how broken he was. And to see Seidou as a character like this. Wow. Wow. And then, Almond. I'm just worried about Almond now. Because if Seidou's character that was like he was, you know, turned into this, Almond as a character, he is going to be fucked. Like, his entire demeanor is probably going to be ruined when we finally see him after seeing how Seidou is. I mean, Seidou, I guess he was easily broken compared to other people, but Almond most likely could be twisted like this too. Judging by the way Seidou looks at the end of this chapter, I'm assuming he got the white-haired Kaneki treatment. He got tortured. It looked like he probably had the exact same treatment that Jason gave Kaneki, because let's look at some of the little details that we've noticed for the past couple chapters. Naoki, as a character, I said in my last review, which is really crazy if you think about it, in my last review of Tokyo Ghoul, Naoki, he was acting a lot like Jason. The way he carries himself, the way his demeanor was, the way his hairstyle was, it's like completely like Jason. It was like Naoki was a new version of Jason. And I'm assuming that maybe Naoki is what made Seidou like he is today. Maybe he's the one that really destroyed his personality. I'm assuming that's what happened. And that must mean that Omon was also affected by the same exact person. So yeah, pretty tragic. Now, one thing I want to say, the chapter sets up, once again, more little details going on in little segments of this chapter. Like, we get a little bit of foreshadowing with Sasuke or Kaneki, whatever name you want to call Kaneki. In the middle of the chapter, right towards the beginning, we get a little bit of setup and foreshadowing that Kaneki is kind of like Arima. He's very similar to fighting style like Arima. It's because, most likely, Kaneki's been training underneath Arima quite a while now, you know, for a long time, for these past couple months. And so, of course, he has gotten a little bit stronger. And he's probably picked up on the fighting style that Arima does. Or maybe he remembers it from when he fought Arima when, you know, he got stabbed in the eyes and through the brain. That's also a reason how he might be mimicking Arima's technique. But regardless of however he learned these techniques that's similar to Arima, it's foreshadowing that Kaneki is in a similar state as Arima when he was, you know, hunting ghouls, and that means Kaneki is going to become a really strong force to be reckoned with. And I can't wait to see exactly how his potential as a fighter continues to increase. Now, one thing though, In this chapter, there's two big plot points coming out. Besides the ending conclusion, there's two big plot points, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they develop. Now, before I get into the Mutsuki segment of this chapter, let's talk about the Hinami segment of the chapter. We already know Hinami is already there. She is there, she's watching Ogiri Tree, she's a part of Ogiri Tree, she's watching the battle, she's given tactics, stuff like that. And we know she's, watching Black Rabbit, all sorts of things like that. Well, in the chapter, you see this inner monologue with Hinami talking about a spying user. And in this chapter specifically, right when, Hinami was shown and the spying user was mentioned, you see Akira use Hinami's parents' Kagane. Or Quinke, whatever name you want to call it. Pretty much, Hinami's parents are being used in this battle. And what's going to happen when Hinami figures this out? Like, did you see the eyes on Hinami in this chapter? There was an up-close personal shot of Hinami with her eyes bloodshot, like she was pissed. Like, you saw the rage in her, like she knew instantly what the spying user was and when she was going to go after this person. So, Akira most likely is going to get wrecked. Maybe, just maybe, the way it's developing, if Almon is around, okay? We've seen a couple chapters back a dude that was holding a similar weapon that was kind of similar to Almon, a cover pages of a chapter a long time ago. I think it was chapter 75 or 90 something in the part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. Well, regardless of that, we know that Almon most likely is around somewhere. And so we gotta assume if Hinami starts attacking Akira and starts wrecking her, I'm willing to bet Almon might jump in and save Akira. That's very possible, and maybe that might be the way Ishida might introduce Almon into part 2 of Tokyo Ghoul, with Akira about to be killed by Hinami. And it would kind of be a slight reenactment of what happened to Mato, because let's think about this, okay? You had it to where Almon blamed himself. He really blamed himself for what happened to his mentor, his senpai, Mato. He was really upset about that, and he blamed himself for that in part 1. And he wanted to do better. He wanted to protect Akira. And what better way to really protect Akira is if she's about to be killed by Hinami, and he comes in and protects her. That's a possibility. I sense that going on in the future of Tokyo Ghoul. That might happen in a couple chapters from now, maybe next chapter after that, I don't know. I sense that's a good way to introduce Almon into part 2 of Tokyo Ghoul. Now, besides that, moving on to the Mutsuki part. Now, Mutsuki, it's very obvious. I've been covering this for the past couple reviews now because that's one of the main central focuses of the past couple chapters. Mutsuki and his development and the death flags riding on top of his head. And in this chapter, Mutsuki gets stabbed by Torso. Mutsuki gets stabbed straight through the back and through the stomach. You just see Mutsuki get stabbed. And we know for a fact a half-ghoul is not going to die by something like that. We can assume right at this moment Mutsuki is not dead. Probably injured, yes, but not dead. Now, is there a possibility Mutsuki can still be saved? Yes. But so many fighters and so many people are fighting right now in different areas of this auction that I highly doubt anyone's going to be able to make it to Mutsuki in time to probably save him. And so there's a lot of bad things going on around Mutsuki because the way it's slowly building up, you have to where Kanye gets his face knocked in by Torso. Torso's like a madman. He's wanting to feast upon Mutsuki, and then, he stabs Mutsuki straight through the back. So yeah, there are a lot of things going on there that once again goes to show that the death flags and the white-haired Kaneki type reference to Mutsuki is slowly building up by the chapter, and we have to wonder, is that really the direction it's going to go? Now, I think that's pretty much it. I think that is. I think I covered everything. I think I did. Well, that's the chapter for the most part in a nutshell. A very good chapter, set up a lot of things. I'm just looking forward to seeing if Almon comes in to save Akira when Hinami's probably going to go and wreck Akira. Oh, yeah, there's one thing I want to point out, actually. Akira, in this chapter, she made a facial expression that was similar to Mato. Oh, dude, the facial expressions in this chapter were on point. Straight up on point. Enough said. So yeah, I want to end it here. You all have a wonderful day or not wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.